Today we're looking at Visual Studio for Mac and how it behaves when you create a new Xamarin application. We're going to compare the MacBook Pro 2019 16-inch version with 64 gigs of RAM with the Core i9 processor versus the MacBook Air with the M1 chip, 16 gigabytes. So very different machines. One is really expensive, almost $4,000. The other one is only about $1,200. Yeah, this will be a big deal for developers that want to save a buck or two, or in this case, a couple of $1,000s. And if these two behave in a similar fashion, then you have a clear choice. Maybe you should just get the M1. I'm using Visual Studio for Mac here as an example because it's an IDE. I don't even know if it's gonna run on the new M1. This is my first time trying it out. If it does, great, because it's a visual environment and it's catching up to the proper Visual Studio. And a lot of developers like to use visual environments. So let's go ahead and try to install this on the new M1. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the download here. No thanks on the survey. There it goes. It's a DMG file, so I'm gonna go ahead and double click it. Why am I saying go ahead so much? I don't know, it must be a verbal tick. I'm gonna try to stop. Hey, look at that. It looks like it installed. Let's double click that and see if it starts. While that's happening and verifying, I'm gonna do the same thing on my MacBook Pro. This is also going to verify. The MacBook Air is asking me if I wanna open this up, and yes I do. We're gonna continue with the installation, and it's asking me what parts I wanna install. Visual Studio for Mac, I do want to install .NET Core. I'm just gonna leave it the way it is, so iOS is fine. While I do have an Android environment set up, I don't care for that right now. That's not what I'm testing at the moment. I'm gonna hit install there and let it do its thing, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the MacBook Pro. The installation here is not nearly as long as it takes Visual Studio to install on a Windows machine, the full Visual Studio, so that's why I'm doing it in this video. Now, if you haven't checked out my .NET video comparing the M1 to the Intel machine on a simple console application, check that out. I'll link to it down below. Supposedly .NET is going to release a new version 6 later this year, which should have support for the new M1 processors, ARM processors in general. I'm not confirming or denying this. I don't know. If you do know the answer to that, let me know in the comments below, but that's what I heard. And if that's the case, then we're gonna see a huge improvement, hopefully, on the new M1 Macs and doing native .NET development there. Until then, .NET is going to run on the translation layer in Intel emulation mode under Rosetta. But even though it's running under Rosetta, you might still be able to get good performance out of it from things like Xamarin. That's what we're taking a look at today. I'm doing it for the first time right now, so we'll see. By the way, let me know down in the comments below if you do want to see any more tests with the .NET framework. I am thinking about doing one more test, and that's to do a stress test of a web application written in .NET, perhaps a Blazor app. Let me know in the comments, please. Okay, MacBook Air finished first in the installation process. MacBook Pro is not too far behind. Let's kick things off. So here on the Air, I'm gonna say, let's do this later. Which keyboard shortcuts? Sure. New project. We're gonna kick things off with a new native iOS and Android app. Here we go. This one. It's a native iOS and Android app written in C#. Pretty cool. Otherwise known as Xamarin. I think it's using Xamarin. I mean, why? There's Xamarin forms up here. Interesting. I don't know why they have this listed under native, because as far as I know, Xamarin is the only technology that's available here, but I don't know what this native is. It's not creating an actual native app, is it? No. Are they getting away from Xamarin? If you know the answers to these ponderances of mine, let me know in the comments below, please. For now, I'm going to create a master details forms app under the Xamarin subsection. Let's click next here. I'm going to give it an app name called Xamarin 1, and it's going to be an iOS test. Let's create that. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the MacBook Pro, of course. Multi-platform app, master details. Let's call this Xamarin 1, iOS, and create. Boom. Now that that's done, I don't know how to time the build process here without the terminal. I'm sure I can run this from the command line using the .NET command somehow, but there's this really nice big play button that's calling my name. So I'm gonna try to hit these two at the same time and see which one of them comes up with the simulator first. Let's run this on the iPhone 8 Plus. let's do that. iPhone 8 Plus. Let's hit these buttons at the same exact time and see which one starts up the simulator first. And when the build process will complete, it should deploy the application automatically to that simulator. By the way, this is actually the first time I'm trying Xamarin, like seriously, ever. So if I did something wrong here, you can tell me in the comments below, as I'm sure you will. And look at that. MacBook Air with the M1 chip brings up the simulator first. Anything that's iOS or Xcode related, I don't doubt that the MacBook with the M1 chip is going to win. You may have caught my videos on Xcode. If you haven't, check them out. I'll link to them down below. The M1 basically just smokes the Intel chip. So you can see that the app is already running on the M1. And there's our master and details application using Xamarin Forms. On the Intel, it's still starting up and working. At which point the build process finished. I actually don't know. I don't have the timing information for that here. All I have is the final result, and it's kind of not a very scientific one either. Let me see if this tool output will give me any information. It does give me when the build was started. Elapsed time 0.26, not even seconds there. I wonder if it gives me a total time at the end. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it. Maybe build output? Ah, build output, found it. Okay, so let's check out build output. That should give us some information. And you can see that the time elapsed on the MacBook Pro is 53.28 seconds, Core i9 with 64 gigs of RAM, and on the MacBook Air with just 16 gigs of RAM, M1 chip, total time was 36 seconds. 2 times faster, but quite a bit faster. Now, in my other .NET tests, the MacBook Pro actually came out on top, the i9 chip beating out the M1 and some of those other processes. But in this particular case, where we're building the Xamarin Forms, I think it's actually using the Xcode tools to do the final build, and that's probably why the final result is much faster on the M1, since those tools run natively to the Apple architecture. All right, let's quit this one, and let's quit this one. And I'm gonna stop the process on both of these. Let's go ahead and create a new project. And we're gonna do an ASP.NET Core app. Now, I think that this should not work on the M1 based on what I've read. So we're gonna create a web application, an ASP.NET Core web application. Call it ASP.NET Core. And let's click create. And I'll do the same thing here as well. So it created the application fine. Maybe it'll even run. I don't know yet. Let's see. Now, right now, this one, the MacBook Pro, is ready to go. This one is also ready to go. Let's kick things off by pressing the play button at the same time and go. Invalid development certificate found. Let's go ahead and click run on that. It needs to install some certificates because we're going to be using HTTPS for local development. Install and trust. Yes. This might be the problem right here. It says .NET quit unexpectedly on the M1. This is kind of what I expected to happen. Most likely not supported at this time. I got a bad instruction error out of that. So I'm gonna try running it just one more time for the heck of it and see if it gives me the same result. And yes. So yeah, some things are going to run and other things are not yet going to run until .NET 6 comes out. Now, I am still trying to run Parallels with Visual Studio Proper installed on there. Windows 10, my first attempt at running Parallels failed. You can see the video on that as well. I did have a successful installation of Windows and Parallels, so I'm gonna get back to that and create another video for that. So if you did find this video helpful or entertaining at least, maybe more entertaining than helpful, maybe more helpful than entertaining. In either case, I'd appreciate a thumbs up so that other people may find this video as well. And if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.